College newspapers are a place for journalists to cut their teeth. I got my start covering UConn's men's tennis for the Daily Campus, but that wasn't in a pandemic. The reporting on COVID's impact on campuses around the country is some of the most critical, important journalism happening in the history of our colleges and universities. Joining me now to talk about that are Ashley Anglisano, news editor of the Daily Campus at UConn, and Anne DiSalvo, arts and living editor for the Quinnipiac Chronicle. Thank you, ladies, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us.
So we'll start things off with my fellow Husky, Ashley. There's never any shortages of stories on campus, whether it's sports, activities, whatnot. But tell me how the pandemic is affecting the decisions you're making in the newsroom, and tell me about some of the kinds of ways that you're covering it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, this has always been a goal of ours, but especially right now with the pandemic going on is we want to get the information out to students that they need in order to still be safe here while they're at UConn. And even if they weren't able to come back to campus this year, still give them that idea of what's going on at UConn and, how they can best succeed in their classes and their extracurriculars, whatever it is they're involved in. And, just most importantly, stay safe and stay informed.
And I see on your website you're even using a lot of data to show trends the same way we see a lot of other news outlets doing.
Absolutely. So we see this effort from UConn to give out numbers of, cases and recovered cases and stuff like that. And on our end, we're doing that same thing. We're also following those numbers and almost backstopping and, kind of keeping an eye on those numbers and keeping them as accurate as possible.
Now, Emily, this pandemic affects students in a lot of ways that are really just unique to campus life. Talk to me about how you and your staff take something like one of the governor's executive orders or some new CDC protocols and applying that to student life and the coverage.
Yeah, so Quinnipiac has really been cracking down on the pandemic from the beginning. We've only had one case, and it was an off-campus student. But at the same time, as things are changing on the state level, as we're seeing spikes around the state and other colleges, we're definitely following those CDC protocols. You see that we have cohorts of classes to limit gathering size. And then when we hear about this sort of thing, we're communicating it to students. Contact tracing, a state effort. Now we have to swipe in every time we drive into campus so that the university is able to track. And that's, again, a goal that's on the state level as well. So following all those same guidelines, and when they're updated, including that in the newspaper so that the students are aware of any changes as they happen.
Now, Ashley, certainly there's been a lot of stories around life on campus, including at UConn. There was some reporting about some off-campus parties at the start of the semester. How do you handle your staff knowing that they need to be careful not to become part of the stories themselves? That's always something we talk about as journalists, but student journalists are learning that. So how do you talk to your staff about those kinds of things?
Yeah, I think it's just having those really open conversations. We meet as a staff every Sunday night, and we don't just talk about our budget, right? Going into the week, it's, talking about that culture that's on campus and, what did you guys do this week? And we all are just very open about what we're doing and having an understanding and knowing, those tough things that are going on around us and just making sure that we're doing our part to help the community as well.
The Daily Gamecock exposed at the University of South Carolina how they were hiding an outbreak on campus. And Emily, I wanted to ask you about Quinnipiac. Since it's a private university, the Freedom of Information Act is a different factor here. It really only applies when information is shared with a public agency. Have you run into any difficulties getting information, or have you had to fight for things at times?
I was initially concerned because I had heard something about a student that was in isolation, and I was not seeing that reported on the Quinnipiac portal. I immediately reached out to the public relations official here at Quinnipiac, who said that they were reporting any confirmed cases as they came up onto the portal, and then they report daily tests from the weekly tests on Friday. So we kind of have to wait till Friday to get those end results. But the tests that happen because of someone that is feeling a symptom, those are the ones I'm still looking into when they're reported and how they're reported. So far, only saying one, but that's the thing. We can't file a Freedom of Information Act report to get that. So we're trusting that the portal is accurate and also just talking to students. Have you heard anything? Quinnipiac's small enough where if someone's friend had a symptom, we can ask them about it. And that's really the way that we circumvent the private university.
And Ashley, that's an example of how newspapers can be a voice for the people Talk to me about some of the issues that you're hearing on campus that students want more information of or more coverage on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we really saw this at the beginning of the year when those first cases started coming out, is people wanted to know where those cases were on campus, what residential buildings, what dining halls those students had been going to. And it's tough because UConn doesn't very easily give those locations out because of the privacy rules in place. So then we would hear these reports from other people. And you kind of have to make those decisions of what information you are giving out, because we want to respect the privacy of those who unfortunately had come down, with COVID, but we also have the importance of the safety of the other students, in the forefront of our minds.
Emily, just one last question real quick. Obviously, college campuses are ripe for rumors and innuendo. How do you fact check what you're hearing from your students with the administration, which you don't always trust to maybe give you all of the information?
Exactly. There's a lot of fear factor spreading on campus. I heard that the people in isolation, this and that. The best way to do it here at Quinnipiac is you go right to the source, you go to the administration, you ask what's up. But then at the same time, you have to be communicating with the students. You have to ask, more than one source. You can't just take what you hear from the first student and publish it in the paper. We have students that are angry with the mask rules. They're trying to get them changed, blah, blah, blah. The meetings, the meeting sizes, the visitors. We have to take that as a newspaper and say, we need to balance public health with what students are saying. Do we publish students' anguish about the fact that they can't go visit their friends and have a party? Or do we take public health first and say, is that worth publishing? So everything that we hear, we take with a grain of salt before deciding whether if it's content that's worth putting in our paper.
Emily, Ashley, thanks for joining me, and keep up the great work.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us on Face the State this morning. We're back here next Sunday at 8:30. Stay tuned for CBS Sunday This Morning. It's next.